go, and then just share my screen with you. Okay, can we all see that okay?
Yep.
Yeah.
Brilliant. Okay. Oh, there we go. Just quite want to play ball. Right, great. Okay. Well, thanks for coming. And I'm just going to go through a couple of things. First of all, thanks for getting back to me with the partnership agreements and things provisionally for next year. And then we've been permitted by ATLP to come out and visit, which is really exciting because it's the first time we'll have actually seen any of the associate teachers actually teaching with real children. So provided it's all okay with you, I've had a couple of people who have said they wanted to read the school risk assessment first, which is absolutely fine. We've had a couple of people that actually want to talk to us face to face before we come in to visit. And again, so if there's any specifics about us coming to visit you, that please let me know, and I'll make sure that's passed on to the rest of the team in advance of their visits. But we will obviously be wearing face masks. We won't be wearing full PPE, but we'll be wearing face coverings and making sure we socially distance. And we do lateral flow tests twice a week as well, just to reassure you with that. And I think that's everything really. And if there's anyone who's not happy to have us in, please tell me sooner rather than later, because I obviously need to stop everyone from planning visits if that's the case. So that's just a bit about that. This currently is the position that we're in when we're looking at recruiting for next year. It's not a very good picture at the moment. We're fine for primary, but we've been pretty slow across the board in all of the subjects. But I say thank you for the partnership agreements. We've got plenty of capacity. And then what I was going to propose to do is send out the formal paperwork after half term and then return it at the end of June, because doing it a little bit later means you're probably in a better position to know who the learning coach is likely to be for September, and that will give us some time over the summer to make sure we've got accounts set up and that the training is bespoke to how many new people we've got and all that kind of thing. So yeah, really just a plea to just publicise us as much as you can through Twitter, school websites, newsletters, all of that kind of thing, because we are quite concerned. Other providers are recruiting far better than us, which is unusual, because normally we're kind of well ahead of the game. But actually, this year we seem to have taken a bit of a slump, and we don't really know why. So I don't know if anybody's got any thoughts on that in terms of the picture. Sarah?
Sorry, I've got to work out how to unmute. Just to let you know that Streetly have only recruited 16.
Oh, okay, that's useful today.
So they're similar numbers, aren't they? And that was as of yesterday. They've recruited 16 into their secondary. Okay,
because nationally applications are really up, so we can't quite figure out what the situation is there. But
I mean, the bursaries have got to have some sort of effect on it, surely. They've pretty much taken all the bursaries away, haven't they?
Yeah, but having said that, our strongest recruitment area is actually history, and we struggled last year with the capacity to place people for history. And also the last year's, there's still quite a proportion of them that still haven't got jobs, and this year there don't seem to be any jobs out there for our current cohort. We've got one at Arthur Terry. I don't know if any of you have got any vacancies upcoming in history.
No.
Ours has just been filled, I'm afraid.
Oh, damn. So yeah.
No, ours, we employed my maternity cover permanently.
Okay.
Because she filled a couple of gaps.
It's a tricky one.
Elsewhere. Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, again, you know, we're all in it together in terms of if we recruit well, then we can place people with you, and then obviously you can go on to employ them. And so it all starts from that marketing. I know it's never the top of anyone's priority list. It certainly isn't mine sometimes, but just making sure that if you really could, if you've got a PR person that you could kind of wang something, even if it's just a link to our teaching school website, that would make a massive difference to us. So there we are. And also we're resuming face-to-face interviews, not with children. We're not going to bring children into the situation at the moment, but we are going to have them into Arthur Terry for interviews. So if you want to join us for any of those, again, I'll try to remember to send out the dates of any ones that we do. And we have got we've got a history potentially and a geography next week, and we've got some PE as well. And our PE lead is off sick at the moment and might be off for quite a period of time. So if anybody's got any PE specialists that fancy coming over and being involved in the process.
I am a PE teacher, but also we've got PE teachers within our group that have been the subject mentors for that, so I can let people know if that's the date.
Yeah,
that.
yeah, that'd be really good. I mean, yourself or John. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're allowed to be released for the.
Yeah, if you send over the date, I'd look at and speak to Rachel about whether one of us would be more suitable or.
Yeah. Okay.
I might be able to help if there's sort of history and geography, depending on the day. If he lets me go, but he should. If you need it.
Off the top of my head, I think it's next Wednesday afternoon.
Oh, yeah. At the minute, there's absolutely nothing in my diary.
All right. Do you want to perhaps
So-
pencil that in then?
Yeah, I'll have to ask the boss if it's all right.
Yeah.
But I'll go and I'll nip down in a minute when we're finished and ask him.
That'd be really, really good. That'd be really good. And obviously, if you don't hear anything in the next couple of days, remind me. But I think we're just waiting for. I think we're waiting for confirmation on that one. So.
Wicked.
Okay. Right. So in moving on in terms of the big O, the threatening Ofsted, we've obviously invited you already to become a member of a Teams group, which is called Skip Professional Coaches. And I did ask before if you've got any training when you do the PES Plus training sessions with your associate teachers, if you could drop the PowerPoint or any resources onto that team. And I put folders on there so that you can drop them in. But I thought it'd be quite a useful resource. I mentioned this last time to be able to collaborate a little bit. So if you could drag and drop, and again, I know it's not necessarily high on the priority list, but what I really could do with from you is an overview of the PES Plus sessions that you've run in your school, because if we do get the Ofsted call, which potentially could be tomorrow, we'd like to be able to kind of show them about what kind of in-school training is happening, as well as centre-based training, which I'll talk about in a bit. Just to remind you as well, in terms of like what we're expecting to be covered in those sessions is at the bottom, against our key strands, all of the things in red are kind of like the essentials. And then on top of that, you might want to run some of those other things as well there. Hello, Richard. Nice to see you.
I am so sorry. Have I missed it? I've got 1,000,001 things to do.
No, not yet.
Even better. And the Ofsted aren't coming yet.
Well, we don't know. Tomorrow, time, if we get to 12 o'clock tomorrow, we can breathe a sigh of relief for a week. But
brilliant.
That's essentially it. So yeah, we're recording this as well, so you'll be able to watch it afterwards, and the PowerPoint will be available too. So
thank you.
Don't worry about that. Just a reminder again that these sessions are meant to be designed, these training sessions, to be your school specific angle on SEN or behaviour or whatever, so that you're looking at the specifics of your school context. And I've got a thing that's just popped up that I can't see. Oh yeah, and then next year, one of the things I'd like to prioritise really is trying to make sure that we're agreeing on the sorts of core content of those sessions as well. But we'll look at that later on another time. So I was going to ask you, first of all, if you could put some thoughts in the chat or just speak out loud about if Ofsted do come, they're very keen on something they're calling purposeful integration. And I want you to just kind of see if you could tell us what you think that means in relation to our Ofsted inspection and then the skip course. Does anyone have any thoughts about how our course is purposefully integrated?
I think the fact that the strands focus on different things over the different sections of their training is a really good model of integration, because it meets them with their needs based on the level of classes they're teaching. And also you do the base thing and then you build up with ending with the adaptive teaching.
Good. Yeah, I agree. Anybody else? These long silences in meetings are worse when they're online, aren't they?
I was going to say they've got flashbacks of live lessons for me.
I'm sorry. It's not a test. It's not a test. Although I suppose it sort of is a test.
I think I would say, Paul, just the way that the skit course means that they are fully part of our staff team. They are fully integrated. So in that, they do the staff CPD, they do the meetings, they do things that perhaps they wouldn't do if they're on a university course.
Right. Yeah, that's a good point.
You know, so
yeah, it's not on my list actually. But that's brilliant.
okay.
Really
So
good.
they do our teaching and learning training, for example.
Yeah. That's good. That's really good.
It's the same with the faculties, isn't it? They're fully integrated into the faculties. They're doing exactly
right.
what the faculties are doing.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's
all the stuff about tags at the moment. They're getting the experience of that, aren't they?
Yeah.
You know, so it's not like we're saying, "Oh, this doesn't count for you. You can go away now."
No.
They you know, they might not be doing the actual part of it, but they're still having to sit through it all to understand it. So.
And similarly this year, particularly with all this COVID and remote, they've had to adapt in the same way that a normal teaching member of staff has had to adapt.
Yeah, and looking after their well-being and being a full member of the department from the word go. I think
Totally,
one of our associate teachers is actually contributing to schemes of work and making resources that I know at Netherstowe they've done a lot of collaborative work and sharing.
Yeah, they have. Yeah.
So yeah, that's really good. Anything else, folks? I think I just want to go back to what Abby said about the coherence, and it's about that common language. So the lesson observation, the lesson plan, the focus of the training is done very much using common language like adaptive teaching, professional behaviours. So it maps nicely to the early career framework as well. We have key strands. So in the first term, we focus on behaviour and engagement planning, and then cognitive science. And then we move to looking more at assessment and adaptive teaching in the second term. So those are the key strands, and then our phases of learning, which is about a foundation and then building on that and then evaluating the effectiveness of it, being our emphasis term by term. We have centre-based training, which is generic, which is the PES, and then we have subject-specific training, which is the SPAR. And they tend to link to each other and give a subject-specific dimension of what's happening in the morning. That's the centre-based training. There's obviously the PS Plus that you're doing in school, which is the school focus on that particular thing at the time. And then a big focus on subject-specific pedagogy, which they're really hot on at the moment. It's more important than the generic training that they have. So our PES has become very much sort of secondary to our subject pedagogy training. And I think they get that in departments sort of by osmosis, don't they? By working, like you say, very closely in that department. And that's what we're calling our ITT curriculum. So if they ask you what the ITT curriculum is, it's not just about us at Arthur Terry delivering training, it's about what happens with you as well on a day-to-day basis as well. So I've put some stuff on the right-hand side there, which I think I've talked about a little bit. My head's changed direction there. Centre-based training then feeds into a sort of standardized weekly target that they have to meet, which is a nice way of integrating target setting with the training. Their pre-lesson dialogue, their observation, their post-lesson dialogue, then finding that sort of action point, that powerful action step or that key lever to create a second target, I think is something that's a well integrated system, and then having that free choice for a third target as well. Then of course remember that the learning coaches are trained in instructional coaching. I think that's a buzzword that we need to drop in there as much as we can, and that we're providing plenty of opportunities. Hannah's smiling.
Yeah, so I've just done a whole thing about early career framework and instructional coaching, and God, yeah, it's driving me mad.
The thing is, we're all saying the same thing, so I think that's really going to work in our favour. And yeah, they've had extensive training on that, and you'll see in a minute some of the things that I shared with them last Tuesday as to what training just remind them about what training they've actually had. Also, the thing that comes through very much in the core content framework is about providing opportunities to rehearse things before they actually go into a classroom and try them, and then to practice, reflect on the impact of it and evaluate it, and then refine it and do it again. So it's using this common language. So I'm brainwashing you all at the moment to use all these words. And then it refers to a lot about expert practitioners. So that's you, us, people in the department, any SLEs you might have, or any people you might have who are specialists in assessment perhaps, or the Senko. So it's utilising those people in your school context. And then obviously the collaborative development of the course, which we're really keen on, making sure that we use this meeting as a forum to develop the course and drive it forward and evaluate it as well. Any questions on that at all? Okay, so the same with the learning coaches, and you'll see in a bit when we did subject specific training with the learning coaches this time, and it was hugely powerful. I'll talk to you about it a bit more in a short while. But this is just a quick fly through of some of the things that we delivered to the learning coaches last Tuesday, so that you know. We pointed out where the coaching materials were, about the training they had initially in October, about powerful action steps and about finding that lever to drive progress forward on a weekly basis, and just reminded them they can access, and so can you, access those learning coach training sessions. So if you know Joe Gavin, you'll be bored of him by the time you've watched all 5. But the number 4 is the one that they all had. And then we've sort of advised them to go and dip into ones that they feel that they need to do if they want to improve their coaching skills. And as from your point of view, you'll know who your stronger and weaker learning coaches are. So for the new ones, or the perhaps ones that need a bit more development, you might want to take the initiative to push them in the direction of watching these videos as well. So we shared that with them. We also sort of made sure they were clear about what their role was, and there's 3 bits to it that I kind of want to make sure we flag up, which is about being a coach rather than a mentor, and basically letting the associate teacher come up with their own targets and be the drive forward, and then the instructional coaching, and finding this lever that moves them forward, and then the use of the teach toolkit, which I think has been a massive step forward. I don't know what you feel about that. Does anybody have any comments about the use of that? No, it's a bit clunky at the moment. It's being refined actually across the whole ATLP, so it'll look different next year because it's actually going to be a lot more user friendly than it currently is. But I think in terms of making sure they're all focusing on the right things at the right time during the course has been a move forward. And I think the consistency of target setting was our only real negative from our last Ofsted inspection. And it's always been difficult to get the consistency of quality of target setting across all the learning coaches. But now I think this has really helped, using that as a tool for that to happen. And then, so the plan for next year, in terms of the 3 learning coach meetings that we calendar, is to basically not do any generic learning coach training at all, and to do it all in small subject specific groups, because we found that attendance was better, engagement was better. Obviously it's not me versus 60 people on a Zoom, it's kind of the subject pedagogy lead they have a relationship with already, and it was really good, it was really powerful, and because subject pedagogy is more important now than it ever has been, I think that's the right model to move forward with. Have you had any feedback at all about how that went? You may not have done. No, I think generally speaking, they really found they gained a lot from it. So the learning coaches, I think they all realised that they were all on the same page. A lot of them realised that they were all using the same resources that I was suggesting and the same pedagogical approaches that I was suggesting in the science meeting that I did. And I think then it's empowered them quite a lot in terms of networking with each other, but also disseminating some of the things that we were presenting into their departments in your schools. So I think the buy-in from it and the impact of it is going to be really big. Does anybody have any sort of comments on that? Are you happy with that as a model going forward? People are nodding. Yeah, that's really good. The other thing that people wanted from the learning coach survey was they wanted more input into actually watching coaching conversations that were effective and watching coaching conversations that were bad, and also some more training on observing lessons and writing observations effectively, and best practice in that's kind of area. So we're going to focus on that as well next year a bit. And again, this optional opt-in to watch different videos based on their own needs was something else that came out from that. And all the admin nonsense will pre-record in advance, get them to watch it before the meeting, and then get the subject leads to just confirm that they have actually watched it, and just use that as a forum for answering questions as well. So that was the plan. So yeah, it was really good, really good. And I think in terms of free CDP, what was that? Is that the right term? Is it CDP? I've got that right. What am I trying to say? CPD is what I meant. Yeah, in terms of CPD that's for them, they can have that for free and they can pass it on to you. So yeah, that is the plan anyway. Just then a reminder about the structure of the course. Again, we've talked about already that it's 3 phases, 3 placements, and the stage of learning evolves throughout the year, and so does the key area to focus on throughout the year. So that picture, obviously, you've seen before. We reminded them about the spiral curriculum, so the fact that they have training in all of the key strands, but we focus primarily on certain ones in different terms, and that it's linked to the school training that you are providing as well. And then we asked them to, particularly if they were keen in working in ITT longer term, about looking at the core content framework. Can I just do an audit? Can you just put your hand up if you've read it? Okay. Can I suggest that you do have a glance over that document? Richard, I didn't have you on screen then. Have you read it at all?
No, I only started this job last Monday. No one told me anything about any of this.
Steep learning curve.
Yeah, steep. Yeah. So this is the ECF document.
No, this is the ITT core content framework. So it's the precursor to the ECF.
Okay, and that's the one that you've got there.
Yeah. So that link there.
I'll read that. Yep.
I'll show you a snapshot of it in a minute, but it's basically linked to the teacher standards broadly. But what we've done is we've split it. We've taken the teacher standards, the ECF strands, and we've split it up slightly differently. So the ECF strands are curriculum, pedagogy, behaviour assessment, and professional behaviour. So there's 5. We split the curriculum and pedagogy into 3, which was, you can see there, planning and engagement, cognitive science, and adaptive teaching, because we felt that they were a bit more discrete for an ITT course to develop, even though there's overlap between them. But the important thing is about how it's framed, because they have learned that statements and they have learned to statements, and it keeps referring to expert input, practice inside the classroom and also outside the classroom, getting effective coaching and feedback, and then improvement. So one of the snapshots from the document is this, so you can see it's got a set of learned that statements and then a set of like how we do that. And I'm just in the process of auditing all of this against what we currently do. But I think I've said everything on there. Any questions on that at all? Please do read it, even if it's just like while you're watching Friends or something like that. Please do just like have a glance over it, because it's a document that we're all supposed to know inside out and back to front. It's what Catherine Mortimer says to me every day. So have a look at that. But I mean, there's nothing in it that's rocket science, but I think it's quite important that we have the ability to articulate how we use it in practice on a day-to-day basis. And then just a reminder that the course handbook, we said this to learning coaches, and all of the sessions, the training sessions that we run, are all accessible to them and to you on our website. Excuse me. And then we're producing a sort of Bible. I'm hoping Ofsted don't turn up tomorrow because I haven't finished it yet, but I'm going to kind of put together a little handbook so that you've got something that you've got, you know, to hand if we do get the call. But this hopefully is an overview of some of the things that we should be saying. And then some of the bits that came from Ofsted, we've got a woman on the inside in terms of Ofsted. We know someone who's an ITT Ofsted inspector who's given us quite a bit of a heads up in some of the areas about if we get the call. We won't go through this in detail, but essentially Wednesday mornings we're all panicking, and then when we get to 11 o'clock we think we're all right then for the next week. And as soon as we have that call, will contact you and let you know what's happening, and they'll call on the Wednesday, and then they will arrive on the following Monday. So we've got capacity, we've got time to prepare, and then they'll be with us. It's longer than a school inspection, it's 4 days. So they'll be with us Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday of the following week. And then going back to this purposeful integration, so they subject specific sessions, you can see there come at the top. That's underpinned by, so that's our SPA, our PES sessions, which is our generic training, comes below that in terms of priority, but there has to be links through from the subject specific to the generic to the actual coaching, teaching practice and mentoring or coaching in school placements. So it's making sure that there's a thread that runs through all of that. So we've stolen these bits of information, and then they did this very complicated picture, which is difficult to read, but essentially it's the subject specific, the centre-based training that's generic, and then what's happening in placements. And what they're saying is they don't care about detecting the structure of it. What they're looking for is when they talk to the associate teachers, that there's an interplay between those 3 levels. So the diagram on the right hand side is they're not interested in the structure behind it, they're just interested in whether it does all link across. So I think that's quite a useful way of thinking about it for when they do arrive. But this is just, I won't go through this, but if you just want to have a quick read of what this says, because this is what they want. Is that okay with everybody? I mean, we're as a team, we're really happy, we're really confident. I was saying to someone the other day, it could still all go wrong. I mean, we've got 60 trainees, and I think 55 of them, if we put them in front of an Ofsted inspector, would be absolutely fine, and they would sing our praises and all the wonderful work that you're doing in schools, and I think that would be brilliant. It still doesn't mean that they could pick the other 5, and it could be a total disaster. But I think if you compare that with, say, BCU, where they've got 500 trainees, I think they could probably depend on 100 of those. So, you know, at the end of the day, it's all just one of those things that's a bit of chance in some respects. But I'm confident the odds are in our favour, to be honest. Okay, so that's all the heavy stuff really in terms of Ofsted, and really hi Sarah, I just wanted to get your thoughts really on these things. So I'm going to give you a few minutes just to kind of have a look at these questions and then just take some feedback. And what I'm looking at really is whether, from your point of view, whether we want to go back from September to a school A for the first term, school B, and then back to the school A model, if that's appropriate for us next year. So going back to what we've done in previous years, we're looking at a 2.5 week induction at the start. So previous years we've done 2 weeks quite intensively, and then last year we did, because of COVID, we did 4 weeks before they came to you, and we sort of looked at possibly 2.5 weeks. I want you to think about what's coming out really strongly in terms of associate teachers practice due to the training that they've had from us, and then what you feel we need to do more of really to prepare them for being in the classroom, and really not COVID related things, but imagine that COVID has disappeared come September. Is there anything that we need to do to adapt our training program? And then lastly, about the role of tutor groups and them acting as tutors. So can I give you like 5 minutes just to unmute, talk to us all, or have a think and just unmute whenever you like? And I just want to have a chat for 5 or 10 minutes about these things.
Sorry. Carry on.
I think there's always a valuable, or it's valuable for trainees to be within more than one school, and so I think that I worry about some that we've had from other institutions that they've been only here, not because it's a terrible experience, but because I wonder how prepared they are just for the changes between schools.
Yeah.
And whilst we're all supposed to be being consistent with what we're doing, of course, that the pupils aren't consistent in one school to another. And so I think it's really, really important that they experience more than one school.
Yeah, it's actually part of the compliance for ITT.
Yeah.
It always has been, and it was just that it's been sort of waived this year. Whether it'll be waived for next academic year, I don't know yet, but yeah, I totally.
The reason I say that is because I've been getting documentation from BCU regarding a one placement structure again for next year. So I didn't know whether that's something that's been. I please don't accept that that's me knowing something. It's just that the documentation I've had through from BCU for our BCU trainees has just been one placement, and so I'm slightly uncomfortable with that. But I don't know whether I didn't realise that that's been allowed for next year.
Yeah, I don't know. The guidance hasn't changed yet. I mean, are we all in agreement that we want a 2-school model?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, me too. Yeah. And we would, if you remember this year, we didn't really make a decision on it until after February half term, right down to the wire, really. And I know that was short notice for you, but we all agreed, didn't we, at the last meeting that was to try and leave it as long as we possibly could. So, okay, well, that's sorted number one out. What about the induction period at the start?
I quite like the 2.5 weeks idea because it gets them into school in September. When we're sort of establishing all the routines and the way things are going to work with different classes, I think that is much, much easier earlier in the year than sort of later in the year. I think it's much easier for them. I think it's easier for us.
I would agree. I would say, Paul, the shorter time you have them and the quicker they get to us, the better.
Yeah. I mean, our 4 weeks at the beginning that we had was quite slow and steady because they were working from home. They didn't really do 4 weeks of full days at all. So we took that content and we've realised we could squash it into 2.5 weeks. But what we didn't do this year was things like learning walks and the opportunity for them to teach a bit of a lesson at Arthur Terry. So we want to put that back in.
Yeah.
Okay. Would anybody want less time or more time than that?
Is there scope to get them in for, because we all tend to have induction, like training days, don't we, in school? I don't know how early they start with you, Paul. All the new policies that are coming out, all the training on software, when we could do like new staff induction, I don't know.
I think it's early, Sarah, because we don't really decide on where we're going to put them until we've had them in for a little bit and got the measure of. So yeah, it would only really work with salaried routes to do that. Any other thoughts from anybody else? Okay, I feel like an auctioneer now. If I say 2.5 weeks, going once, going twice.
I think it feels about right.
Okay, sold. All right, then that's good. And then number 3, then what's coming out strongly in associate teachers practice that you've seen?
I think they just seemed to get on with it a lot better than the other trainees. We've got 4 different providers. And when I did my first round of observations, the Arthur Terry ones really stood out. And I think that it's to do with that spiral curriculum. They weren't bombarded with worrying about too much at one point, that they'd really focused on that behaviour management and engagement and teaching their subject well. So they seem to progress a lot quicker than the others from my perspective.
I'm so glad we're recording this, Abby.
Oh, sorry. I'm just here to give all the good news. I think they knew their subject stuff as well a lot better. So we had Lucy in English, who we still got her because none of them have left us. No. But she's not an English specialist. And when I first spoke to her, she seemed quite worried about her subject knowledge, but it's never been a problem. And I wonder if that, hearing how much you focused on that subject pedagogy, if that's where it's plugged the gaps for her when she was a little bit more nervous about it.
Yeah, that's good. It might be that, and it might also be the rigor of the subject knowledge auditing that we do at the beginning, and the target setting, and the going away and doing subject knowledge improvements term by term.
Yeah, because I was very aware of it because she brought it up, and English being a core subject, we obviously wanted to keep an eye on it, and it's my department, so she couldn't escape me. And she never struggled with it at all. I think
You know, she got the job.
she was really thrilled in, and we've just advertised a temporary one, so I'm encouraging her to go for it.
Oh no, sorry, I mean she's got a job today.
Oh, she's got one. Oh, she's got
Yeah.
one. Oh, fab.
Yeah.
Sorry. Oh,
Yeah.
I'm so pleased for her.
Yeah, Small Heath. So yeah.
She's gone for so many. Sorry, I'm digressing.
Well, no, I'm sorry, because now she can't apply for yours. But never mind.
She's been fab. She's been really. All of them have been.
Brilliant, really good.
I think, Paul, ours have been, the Arthur ones have been stronger on planning. So they seem to know, they're much better at unpicking their lessons and planning it in a strategic way, really, and scaffolding the lessons better. I think our other providers haven't really drilled that down with the trainees. So Arthur Terry have stuck out as being better at that on the top.
Right.
I'd agree with you.
With one exception, of course, but
Yeah.
that's nothing to do with the training.
I've read your mind. Okay, yeah. Any other strengths?
I think just personal confidence with them as well. I think we've talked about it before. You do seem to recruit trainees who have just got that little bit, a bit more up and go. Is that a phrase? Get up and go. That's what I'm trying to say. And I think it's also reflective of how organised, like, your paperwork is, your paper trails are, that everything's referenced in one place. Again, I can't remember who it was that said about BCU. Theirs has been shambolic, if I'm entirely honest, from my perspective. They've asked for the repeat of midpoint reviews that didn't show anymore because of the fact we're all working from home, and it didn't reflect in a different way. So I think you've been quite reactive, and the students have the ATs, have really just been clear on what their expectation is from day one. So your communication with them is reflected, I think, in their practice as well, and their, you give them nudges, don't you, to make sure that they're getting in touch with us to do their final assessment, their final reviews. And I think that whole communication with them is great, and it is partly because they're a bit more confident in themselves, I think.
Yeah, good, lovely. Okay.
I think from our point of view, Becky and Elsa, I obviously don't know them that well because I've only been back a week and a bit, but they're both nicely placed with their learning coaches. It's the right fit for them, and that allows them, I find, to develop really fast. From the conversations I've had with James and Ruth, it's the learning coaches, to really make big development steps that they need to, because that relationship works really well. Yeah. And I think maybe that, in our case, that maybe wasn't the case in maths this year. I'm just coming in on the tail end of it, to be honest.
Yeah. That was despite quite a large amount of intervention on both sides, I think. Well, three sides, from towards the learning coach and towards the associate teacher, and the work that Maggie did in intervening and doing that. I mean, it's the hardest work a professional coach has probably ever, well, not ever, there has done a lot before.
I think I dodged that one quite nicely.
Yeah.
But yeah, absolutely. The Becky and Elsa, the pairing and the matching, the learning coach is right. It's the right person.
Yeah, and then that goes back to what Sarah was saying before, in that's why we leave it a bit later than we perhaps other providers do, before we actually finalise those decisions, because we want to get it right. And who we thought we were going to put people with, sometimes in September, like we're a week in and we think, oh, actually, I think no, they'd probably get on better with somebody else. So yeah, that's why. Well, let's do the negatives and think about what we think associate teachers perhaps need more of in terms of centre-based training.
I'd say just time to be honest, because I feel like they've missed so much. I mean, I floated it with a couple of the departments yesterday as to whether they'd be happy for them to stay on a little bit longer. Just as obviously it's dependent on when you're signing them off, but if they wanted that kind of the work experience, essentially, I suppose, just to give them more contact time with the students if they don't feel it's negatively impacting the students. If you're happy for them to not extend their placement, just to sort of a bug in front of me, just to give them more time, really.
Yeah, we're not looking at formal extension.
No.
I think if they haven't met the standards to the level at which we would want them to, then we would formally extend it. And if they hadn't, we would sort of complete the course and recommend them for QTS. And if you wanted to, but I think there are issues in terms of like health and safety, perhaps, and I'm not
Insurance.
Insurance, yeah, I'm not sure, because they'd have to come in as a volunteer, which I think if they wanted to, I can't see any problem with it, because it would be just the same as those mentors, like COVID catch-up mentors, wouldn't it? Yeah, I mean, they're happy to do it. I think they all know and they all feel that they haven't had enough time in the classroom, and that's beyond our control. But yeah, it's something that you'd have to talk to them about, really. We sort of wash our hands of it, I think, at the end of June. Okay, anything else in terms of not COVID related though?
I think they just need a little bit more on work-life balance, time management. I think they're very anxious to do well. And I think, again, as been said, the ATLP, ATs, a little bit more keen and perfectionist, which is great. But I think they're not as good as at putting it down and getting a break.
It's difficult, isn't it? The balance between being conscientious and driving yourself.
So I just think we need to work with them on that and how to do it and what's the expectation, you know. Yeah.
Okay. We've done quite a lot of things with that in terms of the amount of evidence we asked them to submit in on top of what other providers do. They have to submit every lesson plan. They have to plan every lesson in detail on the form, evaluate every lesson and those things. And we've been selective about what things we've asked them to minimise.
I've just got people like Sam who's just working the clock round. He's working till midnight, you know. And
yeah, it's stopping him, isn't it? Which is difficult when they're conscientious. Okay, and then the last thing is tutor groups, because I think today it's just something that's popped up into my head today about we're all happy with giving them a timetable in departments and all that kind of thing, but actually I'm not sure about and I'll have to ask you for this information about the consistency of what they're getting in terms of their diet in working as a form tutor. So I don't know if anyone can just tell me what your procedures are.
Mine are all paired with the tutor outside of the faculty that they're in. So if they're whatever faculty they're in, we've paired them with the tutor outside of that group.
Okay.
Yeah, we've done the same actually. It's outside department, and trying to, if depending on what their timetable looks like, if they're a Key Stage 3 heavier timetable, we tend to put them pastorally 4 or 5 to give them a slightly wider breadth of experience with different age groups of lads.
Right. I think that's a good idea.
Yeah, we've done pretty much the same, but we've actually gone more Key Stage 3 focus on the basis that that's the year group they're more likely to be placed with. Not exclusively, but more likely to secure posts for September.
Okay.
Yeah, we're the same with the Key Stage 3.
Okay. Can anybody hear me? I think I've frozen or you have.